So up next, we have Eissman, the head of design from Slack. Last year, he gave a great talk about the importance of the principles that they use to design. And recently, he's been on a quality journey. You might even call it a different kind of transformation. So please join me in welcoming Ethan to the stage.
Thank you, Anders. Hello, everybody. I'm Ethan. I head up design at Slack. It's great to be here. Let's see, can we get the slides up here? I can see them. Tell a joke. Maybe you should have updated the... All right, let's see what's going on here. There we go. All right. So today we are going to talk about what great design feels like. Obviously, we care deeply about design at Slack. It's something that is really important to us because our users at Slack are spending their working lives in Slack. So we want to make sure that that experience is as comfortable and as possible and as well crafted as we can make it. So today we're going to focus specifically on what it means to craft great software. We'll dive into what great craft looks like, and then we'll talk about how you can foster better crafted software at your company. And as we go through today's talk, I want to encourage you just to engage with some of the things that I talk about here. There's been a lot of great conversations within Config about craft. So I just feel like I'm continuing on this really good sort of vibe and message about cultivating better craft throughout all of Config. And we're all learning from each other. Okay, so let's take a big step back and talk about the qualities that go into software design. And we oftentimes land in three big areas: utility, usability, and craft. So utility is about whether the software actually serves a purpose, is of some value to people. Usability is whether the software can actually work and whether people can make use of the software. And then there's craft. Craft is about how the product feels to use. And a sign of well-crafted software is a product that elicits a positive emotional response from the person who uses it. And that's in opposition to poorly crafted products, which often elicit negative or at best neutral responses. Now, what's interesting here is the Venn diagram created when you combine these three product qualities together. And we can see that when all three are combined, we have the chance to create a product that has great design. But when we only have two factors, we risk negative experiences. Now, let's just focus on utility and usability. Across most product teams, there's no debate that a product needs to be useful and usable. That's established in industry, right? We've evolved many mechanisms and three-letter acronyms, to achieve this. When you talk with a decision maker about an MVP, is something that's important, it's useful and usable, they'll nod their heads and say, yeah, I know what an MVP is. That sounds great. We should do that. But craft, that's more elusive. It's viewed as more subjective. And many people, including those decision makers that you're working with, they don't notice it. And they certainly weren't trained on it, right? So one of the things that I found is to be very clear in identifying the dimensions of craft for folks. Because if you can make those dimensions obvious to your executive peers, you're giving them a language through which you can talk with them. They can learn about craft and see it through your eyes. So let's quickly talk through the dimensions of craft here. First, craft brings forward the best in two-dimensional design. Okay, the way most humans today act with most computing interfaces is in two dimensions, although we're getting in more into spatial design, which is very cool. But when we think about craft and visual design, we think about color theory, typographic standards of excellence, appropriate spacing, information density and hierarchy, the clarity of our icon set, the contemporary nature of our application Chrome. Great to see UI3, taking a big step forward here. This is all about some aspects of two-dimensional design. Now, all these factors go into thinking about that visual design of the experience. Now, the next factor that contributes to craft is animation, or the way the software, objects in the software move. Do they snap immediately from point A to B, or do they transition smoothly? When you think about animation, it's about really mimicking an experience that exists in the real world, right? And ideally, it's mimicking the best types of real-world experiences. Like when you have a soft close cabinet drawer, when you close it, it kind of goes fast, and then at the end it eases to close, and then it clicks right at the end. That feels amazing. Feels much better than a door that you just slam shut. Okay, voice is also crucial to craft. Voice and tone. This is becoming even more so crucial with generative AI and voice interfaces and the text that's being produced by AI systems. And at Slack, we've cultivated a strong voice and tone. It's part of our brand. It's been part of our brand from day one. People, for example, love our release notes. They're pretty witty, unconventional. And we take the voice and tone in our product experience as seriously as we take other parts of our UI. Okay, this is becoming increasingly more important with AI, obviously. Now, craft also brings forward the best in industrial design. Industrial design is about marrying ergonomics, the way something feels to be used, with materiality, or the combinations of materials that go into the product. When we think about bringing ideas from industrial design into software, the resultant is an experience that actually feels tactile, right? It feels more like the real world and tactile. One of my favorite examples of this is setting the alarm on the Apple Watch. Who here has tried doing that? It's a pretty awesome experience. When you use the jog dial, you get these little like bumpy feedback vibrations as you go over the hands or go over the 5-minute ticks, and it feels fidgetable. You just want to play with it for its own sake, even if you don't want to set the alarm. I think that's a really great example there of the feeling of industrial design in a software experience. Now, the final factor that goes into craft is interactivity. This is the responsiveness of the software to input. Roll over a button, does it feel alive? Click a form field, does it respond in some unique way? Okay, interactivity is what separates software from other non-responsive media, like movies. Movies have all the factors that we see here, all the factors of craft. And the best movies have the best factors of craft, right? But they aren't interactive. Okay, so now when you marry all 5 of these factors together, you got the 5 dimensions of craft. Now let's talk about an example of a software company that dives deep into craft. Now I love this story. I'm not sure if anybody you saw Andy's talk here, Config, he's incredible. He's just a master of craft. So Andy Allen of Not Boring Software wrote about how they labored over and over again to design and build the world's most satisfying checkbox. They did this for their Habits app. This app is basically meant to help people build habits, right? So you state what you want to do in the app, and then you get to check it off. But instead of just a boring checkbox, they wanted to create the world's most satisfying checkbox to complete that habit. Because that was the entire point of the app. Complete a habit, click the checkbox. That was it. So here's the point of that most satisfying checkbox. They wanted to feel like a reward, because when you get a reward, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine. And once you get that hit of dopamine, your mind associates the action you took with the dopamine hit. And that's the neuroscience of habits. They're simply dopamine reward loops. So if you haven't read Andy's article yet, or his articles, he's written a number of these, they're amazing. He describes using all of the dimensions of craft we discussed in building this checkbox. They use graphic design, 3D design, motion, animation, sound design, and of course, interactivity, all to make that most important checkbox feel just incredible. So you get the dopamine hit, the reward from completing the habit, and you do it again and again. So it's craft with a purpose and a goal in the product. Okay, so we've learned about the 5 dimensions of craft. Here's another way to think about craft's importance. You know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Well, this is the hierarchy of design qualities. At the baseline, the software is functional, it works, great. Then it's reliable, it's performant, it's free of bugs. Then it's usable. And then finally, it's a pleasure to use. And the way to think about this apex level is by inserting craft into the experience. Another way to think about craft is via the example of a chair. A stump, it's a perfectly good and reliable chair. A green plastic lawn chair is even usable. You can pick it up and take it around in the garden party. It stacks, that's pretty cool. But the Eames rocker, now that's a really well-crafted chair. People pay a lot for that chair. They covet the chair. It's made of premium leather. The wood is beautiful. It's got a beautiful design. It's incredibly comfortable. And it's that way because of the craft that's put into it. Okay, let's look at a few more examples of well-crafted and pleasurable software. And as we look at these examples, I want you to think about just how the craft accentuates their core goal, much like in that Habits app, how the most satisfying checkbox accentuates the core goal of clicking the checkbox, feeling the checkbox, and completing the habit. Here's one from Google Maps. This example isn't just fun. It helps people understand the map view will change whenever the Pegman is dropped. It feels great because Pegman wiggles around as you move him around. So you just want to play with Pegman. And then there's a real physical component to the experience that blends perfectly with the realism of the street view with that like non-realistic, more sketchy interface of the topographic view. So you just drop them down, and now you're on street view. Now this is one of my favorites. Robinhood uses motion and animation and a great voice to explain options trading, which is an incredibly complex topic. But they make it comprehensible every step of the way by using well-written copy combined with beautiful animated infographics, combined with smart interactivity to engage the user so they're engaged in the learning process. To do this kind of craft, you really need to have a clear understanding of what is important to communicate to your customer. This is seriously hard design to do right. I give a lot of props to the Robinhood team that built this. I think it's a really impressive example. Okay, within Slack, the team that built mobile catch-up invested significant time and energy to make the onboarding experience feel fluid and natural. It also reinforces the primary action to take once you're in the catch-up feature, okay? The feature's primary flow is swiping one direction to read a message, swiping the other direction to mark the message as unread. And there are these little icons up at the top that fill in on those cards when you swipe them one direction to the other. And once you actually commit to one direction, you actually can feel it snap. All those little bits of the detail matter. They help you actually make the right decision as you're going through your messages. Now, here's another example from Slack. So, when you're holding on a huddle, there we go. Why not have some smooth jazz music to pass the time? Holding on a huddle is not very fun. You're waiting for people to join you. And if you don't like smooth jazz music, we also made it possible to change the channel. So there's other types of music you can listen to. So to build this, we hired a few musicians to custom make the music. And we decided to invest the time and energy effort. The engineers were excited to build this. We built this feature. Now, we didn't need to make this, but we wanted to make the product just feel great and take advantage of this moment in time when people might not otherwise be having a good experience to try to make that experience awesome. We try to be a great host here. And our customers appreciated us for the craft that we put into the product. We didn't do it for the likes, right? But internally at Slack, I do like to share these quotes around to help then encourage the team to see that craft matters. When you deliver great craft to your customers, they appreciate it. They love your product for it. Okay, so now we've got a good idea of the dimensions of craft, how they should come together to reinforce the goals of your software, and how well-crafted software can make a difference in your customer's life. Now, let's dig deeper into why craft matters at Slack. This part is more about product culture and philosophy versus technique. And I'm sharing this to clarify a number of factors that hopefully you can take back and use at your own companies. Okay, first and foremost, we care about craft at Slack because it's part of our DNA. In his letter to the team a few weeks before Slack's preview launch, Stuart Butterfield, our co-founder and former CEO, talked about the importance of building products that are really well honed. He wrote an article called "We Don't Sell Saddles Here." You can still read it online. This set expectations from the top that craft matters. Now, I want to underscore this, that when care for craft starts at the top, it makes it infinitely easier for your teams to attain it. And this is not to say that craft can't be attained if your CEO isn't entirely aligned with it. But this is to say that when you do have that top-level executive alignment around craft, it just makes it so much easier to attain. That's why I like to make sure that executives have the language of craft, and they also know the reasons why craft is effective. It's one of the reasons why I'm presenting to you today, so you can take some of this information back and maybe convince your executives that they don't already believe in craft, why it's important, that it is important. Now, there are other very practical reasons why craft is paramount at Slack. First, it helps us to retain and grow our customer base. In fact, Slack's early success came from word of mouth. People love Slack, and they shared it with others. Now, second fact is that technology is always evolving. The operating system that people are using gets better and better and better year over year. The next app your competitor creates will be far better crafted than yours, right? You need to keep up. Your customers' dissatisfaction with your product because the other products you're using are just getting better, you should use to your advantage, right? We all love to execute on craft. Our customers demand it. They expect it over time. All right, and third, the reason why craft is important to Slack is just it's part of our mission and culture. Our mission is to make people's working lives more simple, productive, and pleasant. So we have a deep sense of pride that drives us to deliver well-crafted software. Okay. Let's talk now about how we attain craft at Slack. So first and foremost, we talk about craft across the entire product design and engineering teams because at its core, craft is a team sport. In other words, no matter how much design we do, none of it matters unless that design is actually built in code. That's code that our engineers write. So we need our engineers to care, and they do. Our engineering leadership team rewards those engineers who execute at a high level of craft. We also encourage our engineers to have an even deeper ownership of craft. In fact, we encourage them to own it themselves. We believe that the best scenario is a world in which all the engineers at Slack actually think deeply enough about craft that they come up with their own ideas for well-crafted designs in the software, and then they build it themselves independently. And of course, we'll have designers collaborating with them, but if we have engineers who actually have their sense of craft and taste honed, and they're able to execute it independently, that is a perfect spot to be in. So, in fact, here's this example of an engineer who cares about craft. Naman wanted to make sure Huddles wouldn't have this the content of the Huddle cut off at the top and the bottom of the Huddle window. Now, here's the result. It's super simple, super subtle, but it's important. You see this little filter at the top and the bottom, so when you scroll, the content isn't abruptly cut off. Now, the same engineer who built this also built the mobile catch-up experience, which, as you saw, was much more sort of in-depth and complex. He's incredible. He's also a designer at heart. In fact, now Naman is part of the design team. So how did this happen? Well, we established a small design engineering team within design. So design at Slack is around 70 to 80 people. Design engineering is 3 people. We created a design engineering ladder. we create a Design Engineering Champions program that enables engineers who care about craft and design to be a part of our team for 3 to 6 month increments and engagement. Naman did this, and they decided to make the jump over to the design team. But there are engineers who have engaged in this program who haven't joined design. They've gone back to the engineering team, and then they've helped coach the engineers around craft because they've experienced it within the design team. They were able to bring that culture back into the engineering team. That's been really effective as well. Now, if you want to get more information and you want to see our design engineering ladders, more than happy to share, or I'm happy to share this Design Engineering Champions program. It's really excellent. Chris in the front row helped put this together. Another key way for us to attain craft is to make a plan for it from the start. Craft takes time. We bake it into our schedule. Now, this is a bigger conversation, but I think there's a real opportunity for us to make sure that we scope projects to attain something that is a minimal level of love, minimal lovable product versus a minimal viable product, right? That we hope will fast follow and make better. And another way that we attain craft at Slack is through the act of prototyping. Now, it is impossible to attain a high level of craft in one try. It is the nature of craft that it requires iteration. Why? Because craft is all about refinement, honing something, never settling, tweaking it until it's just right, always having this desire to make it better. And our main medium here is code, not Figma, actually. It's not static design or some simple non-data driven prototype. It's a live, interactive, real code that we can collectively play with and debate in the product. Now, we have a product principle at Slack. Andrew mentioned we have product principles. If you want to see more about product principles, check out my config talk from last year. I spent the most time on prototype the path. But we have a product principle at Slack, prototype the path, that we take pride in across the team. And this enables us collectively to shortcut the conversation on the importance of prototyping. Prototyping is just built into the way that we build product at Slack. Now, we also provide teams with a craft toolkit, which is a short set of tips to help them focus on craft while they're executing on the product. And because my time here is up, I'm not going to go through each one of these tips, but if you want to capture them with your phones right now, great, or you can watch this later on YouTube, and I'm more than happy to give you more input and information on these. Sarah Moser and Kyle Turman put these together. They're really useful tips. You can customize them for your own team. Okay, so today, we've talked about the dimensions of craft, how to use it wisely to accentuate the core goal of your software, why craft matters, and we've learned some tips on how to help your teams execute on craft. So hopefully you were able to take away some useful insights today, and let's keep the conversation about craft going here at Config and afterwards. It's on all of us to make sure that the people who use our products get the great software experience they deserve. Thank you.